السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أهلا بكم مع منصة آفاق مارية للتدريب. أهلا بك أستاذ أحمد وأهلا بالحضور الكرام. احنا طبعا بيشرفنا اليوم أن يكون معنا دكتور وعالم جليل، بالإضافة إلى زميل عزيز وأخ وليه باع وتاريخ كبير في الإي بي إي، الأستاذ أحمد حميد. الأستاذ أحمد حميد يعني غني عن التعريف. أولا هو زميل وأخ فاضل، تاني حاجة هو ماجستير في التربية الخاصة، وكمان بيحضر دكتوراه في التربية الخاصة. وهو طبعا راجل شغال في الاي بي اي، خبرة سنين طويلة ما شاء الله تبارك الله عليه. هيكون بإذن الله الأستاذ أحمد عبد الحميد هو المحاور لضيفنا النهاردة، وهو اللي هيعرفنا على الضيف ويدينا نبذة عنه. وطبعا احنا شرف لينا في منصة آفاق مالية للتدريب إن يكون عندنا عالم جديد، بالإضافة إن يكون المحاور هو الأستاذ أحمد. فاتفضل أستاذ أحمد، المايك معك.
الله يبارك فيك. آه، دكتور باولو، how are you? دكتور, could you open your mic, please?
I guess that would be helpful, huh?
Yeah.
Hello, how
Uh,
are you?
okay, I'm fine. Thank you. In the first, really, I want thank you so much about you accepting to get us from your time. I know your schedule is too busy, but really, we are so happy because you are here today. I guess the whole in the life is no, who are you? But I need you first to introduce yourself, please.
Well, I appreciate it. And first of all, Ahmed, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm always honored to share the science of human behavior with people. My vision is that there's a better world through the behavior science. And my mission is to help people to better help themselves and others through the science of human behavior. And so, Ahmad, should I are are people on here English speaking, or should I pause so you can translate at times?
After you finish introduce yourself, I will translate to Arabic.
Okay,
Okay?
all
Thank you.
right, fantastic. Yeah, um, I've been in human services and education for over 30 years. I started working as a social worker, and I
Okay.
moved on to working in education, and then continued. And I'll be sharing some of that stuff in just a little bit as I unpack some of my history. But I've written a number of books, which you'll see, and when I unpack this stuff, because again, I love sharing the science. I don't write the books because I want to make money off of it. There's not much money in book writing, but I
Okay.
really love taking this very kind of complex science and breaking it down to something that's very simple for people to understand and use. I live in Florida, in the United States. I have a wife and I have a son. My wife is actually a school administrator. And Yeah, I think that's enough about me. People want to find out more. I'm all over the internet. They just got to Google me. But I want to say this, that I'll be talking about the science of, be talking about leadership and education, but this talk is for anybody. Anybody in any
Perfect.
organization, it does not matter. The principles are generalizable to everywhere. It's just we change the nouns.
Thank you so much. I will translate. هو دكتور، هو دي بي سي بي اي، يعني هو بيكون مشرف على المشرفين اللي تحت اسمه اللي هو البي سي بي اي، وتحت البي سي بي بيكون في ار بي دي. وهو ذكر ان هو يعني عرف نفسه بتعريف صغير ان هو بيحب يساعد الاشخاص اللي بتدرس اي بي اي، ويساعد الاشخاص اللي بتشتغل بالاي بي اي مع الاطفال، ويساعد الاشخاص نفسهم يعني. هو خبر اكتر من 30 سنه في المجال، بدأ كاخصائي اجتماعي، وثم الف بعد ما طبعا دخل البورد البي سي بي اي، الف كتب عديده وكتير جدا، حوالي اكتر من 8 كتب، من اشهر الكتب حاليا في امريكا او في فلوريدا خصوصا، عن الاي بي اي. وكمان هو قال لفته جميله جدا عن زوجته، ان هي كمان مديره مدرسه في فلوريدا في امريكا. يس دكتور. قال كمان ان هو هيتكلم عن يعني النهارده عن كيفيه القياده، مش بس هو هيتكلم عن كيفيه القياده في المدرسه او في المجالات عموما، ولكن هو المحاضره دي هتكون لكل الناس، يعني هيقدر يستفيد بيها كل الناس. يس دكتور.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead. I'll share.
Sorry, doctor. Before you start, can I ask two questions because I wait so time to ask this question.
Sure.
First one, why BCBA is limited now in USA and Canada, Australia, and Inglaterra? Why not open like before in Middle East or other countries?
Yeah, I think it has to do with oversight and ensuring the integrity of the process. I think it's just too far removed from whatever systems we have over here. Thankfully, I think you had Dr. Michael Mueller on, and he's doing something with the International Organization for Behavior Analysis. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
Trying to disseminate it. But I think it really has to do with just the oversight and making sure that there's integrity with the program.
اوكي، هو انا سالته ليه البي سي بي اي اقتصر فقط على حاليا دول معينه زي امريكا وكندا واستراليا وانجلترا، ليه مش فاتح في الشرق الاوسط زي زمان؟ فهو قال ان ثلاث حاجات هو الاساس الموضوع ده. رقم واحد تباين الانظمه، يعني هو عشان يضمنوا المعايير تكون مطبقه بشكل واضح، ولان اختلاف القوانين من مكان لمكان هم مش هيقدروا يطبقوه. فهو يس دكتور you want to say something?
Yeah, I want to add one more thing to it.
Yeah.
Also, it's about accommodating the cultural nuances, right? Because making sure it's generalizable to different cultures requires somebody
اه
within the culture to spread it, right? Because it could look and sound different one way, even though the principles are same, people need to understand it and understand the cultural nuances.
واو اوكي، هو ضاف حاجه كمان. فقال عشان رقم واحد تباين الانظمه، عشان يضمنوا ان المعايير بيطبق بشكل دقيق جدا من مكان لمكان. خصوصا المعايير بتختلف من امريكا للشرق الاوسط، مثلا عندنا في حاجات عاديه عندهم مش عاديه والعكس. رقم اثنين اللغات المتعدده، هم مش قادرين يوفروا الكورس ده بلغه غير الانجليزي لان التكلفه كبيره جدا، فبالتالي هم اقتصروها بس على الدول دي. كمان بيركزوا، هو قال حاجه مهمه جدا جدا، ان اختلاف الثقافات قد يؤثر في المعايير. وده اللي انا بقوله. ان هو مثلا في البورد البي سي بي اي بيقول لك انت ما تجيبش هديه، آه، ما يسمحش ليك انك تجيب هديه اللي شغال مع الطفل بتاعك اكتر من $10. اعتقد في دول زي الدول العربيه زي الامارات او عمان او السعوديه، لو انت عملت كده فدي كانك بتشتمه يعني. ثانك يو دكتور. دكتور.
Yes, yep, you're welcome. You froze a little
Yeah,
bit there for me, but yeah,
yeah, thank
okay.
you. Okay, you can stop.
Okay, all right. So I'm gonna go ahead and then share my screen. Is that
Okay,
okay? Yeah, and
okay,
we'll get rocking and rolling here. All
okay.
right. Okay, can you see that?
Yes, I see it.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. Everybody can see it. Okay. First of all, I work too. I am the CEO of my own company called Heart and Science Consulting. I travel all over the world to help organizations improve their culture and improve performance, right? I believe that the science of human behavior can really create any organization that has peak performance and where people are happier and they perform better and they produce great results, right? But I also am the director for the Professional Crisis Management Association, and we train people as instructors in order to help people to prevent, de-escalate, and physically immobilize people who might be dangerous to themselves and others. And the program is completely built on behavior analysis. So I guess I'll pause and let you translate that, and then I'll move on to the next slide.
اوكي، هو الدكتور تقريبا عرف نفس التعريف اللي احنا عرفناه في البدايه، ان هو دكتور بي سي بي اي دي، وان هو يعني سي او، يعني هو المدير او رئيس مجلس الاداره لشركته هي الخاصه بيه، خاصه بتحليل السلوك التطبيقي. والف العديد من الكتب دي اسمها موجوده قدامكم، هي موجوده كمان على موقع امازون اعتقد، يعني سعرها شويه مش غالي يعني، وما شاء الله هي ليها باع كبير جدا في علم الاي بي اي. يس دكتور.
Okay, thank you. We'll go
ويلكم.
ahead and move on to next.
Yeah, next.
All right. Now, a lot of people will say they have objectives that you're going to learn this and be able to state that and the other. And I'm like, this is just a talk. Learning really requires instructional design and, it requires, feedback loops and blah, blah, blah. This is my true objective when I come in to give talks like this. And that is, I want to simplify things that are complex for people, right? I love doing that. I want to inspire people to know that they can make a change and make a better difference in their lives and the lives of others. And I want people to be able to better reflect on their behavior and the impact that they're having right now. Because in the end, it's not about our intent. Intent's important, right? But in the end, it's really about our impact.
Okay. Could you please give example for everyone?
Of which?
Like simplify.
Oh, simplify, making things easier for people to understand.
Okay.
Things can be confusing, so I take things that are difficult to understand and make it easy to understand.
Okay. Second one.
Inspire, I get
Yeah.
people excited about I believing that they can make a better change in their lives and others.
Okay, last one.
Reflect, that is getting them to reflect on their own behavior and the outcomes they're producing, right? Because in the end, it's not about what they mean to do. It's not about their intent, right? I believe people want to do good things, but it's about what is actually happening as a result of their behavior, their impact.
اوكي، بيقول ان يعني هو تقريبا هو ماشي على 3 خصائص معينه بيسري عليهم او بيمشي عليهم عشان يعلم الناس ازاي يكونوا يعني الاداره الصح. رقم 1، بيحط لهم حاجات تكون سهله للفهم بالنسبه لهم، يعني بيحط لهم مثلا قواعد معينه، هنعمل 1 2 3 تكون فاهمه، او مثال بسيط يصل لكل واحد فيهم، ما يكونش معلومات معقده يصعب ان هو يفهمها. رقم 2، يكون الحاجات دي مرتبطه بحاجه خاصه بالحماس، يعني حاجه خاصه باحلامهم او اهدافهم، بحيث لما يحققوها يحسوا انهم حققوا انتصار. واخر واحده اللي فريق، يعني لما يحققوا سلوك كويس قبل كده بيبقوا عايزين يحققوا نفس السلوك او احسن منه بعد كده. فهي 3 خصائص دول هو اللي بيمشي عليهم يعني. يس دكتور.
Okay, great. Now, first of all, I am a former fighter. I'm the former Golden Gloves heavyweight champion of Florida, and I've been able to go in and work with fighters across the world. I have local, state, national, and even world champions, right? I know that UFC is
واو.
big in your area now, right? They've been out there, and I've trained a number of UFC fighters, and all using the practical application of behavior analysis.
Uh, you mean you are like boxing?
Yes. Oh yeah,
اه.
I got these hands.
اه
But I'm also
I see that in فيسبوك. اوكي.
yes.
هو الدكتور بيقول ان هو استخدم حتى تكنيك الاي بي اي في رياضه مفضله ليه زي البوكسينج، وحصل بعدها على بطولات سواء دوليه او حتى محليه، يعني لعب مع ناس في امريكا وناس بره امريكا وناس حوالي العالم، واستخدم تكنيكس في الاي بي اي في اللعب، ووصل اللي هو عايزه، يعني حقق بطولات بيه كبيره بال3 استراتيجيات او 3 صفات اللي هو قلناهم قبل كده، ان هو اهداف واضحه وسهله وبسيطه، حاجه يكون هو متحفز ليها او هيفرح لما يعملها، حاجه يكون متحفز ليها او بيفرح لما يعملها، ثم السلوك بيحدث تكرره مره اخرى لانه حقق حاجات هو كان عايزها. يس دكتور.
Yes, and just a side note here, the reason they call me Pauli Gloves is because I'm the former Golden Gloves champion and I have
آه.
golden gloves around my neck. So
يعني هو لو شفتوا اسمه على الفيسبوك اسمه حاجه جلافز ليه؟ لا. اوكي، اسمه حاجه جلافز ليه؟ لان هو واخد البوكس الذهبي في امريكا، البوكس الذهبي، عشان كده هو مسمي اسمه على الفيسبوك بهذا الاسم يعني. يس دكتور.
okay. Now ABA has created champion fighters, but it's also I've helped failing fighters go to become champions, but I've also helped very difficult schools turn around, right? Failing schools become champion schools, right? Moving from failing grades to A grades. With schools in very high crime areas, high poverty areas, where kids were fighting all the time, where staff were quitting all the time. And I've been able to go in and use organizational behavior management, right? The science of human behavior to completely turn around these schools. And what's important to understand is that when kids are having behavioral challenges, for example, or a performer, an employee is not performing to a standard, we can't change their DNA. We can't change their history. All we can do is change the environment around somebody. And as leaders in any place, right, as a supervisor or whatever our title is, we are responsible for creating that environment that brings out the best in the people. I'll let you translate that. You're muted, brother. I can't hear you. You're on mute, Hamed.
الفريق
There you
كان
go.
مقفوله خلاص. سوري دكتور سوري. Could you repeat please after you said we can't change DNA for a child but we can.
Right. We can't change their history.
اه.
We can't change their DNA, but
اه.
we can change the environment in a way that gets the best out of them. And we are responsible for that environment, the same way that a leader is responsible for the environment of the employee, right? We can't force people to do things, but we can change the environment in a way that gets the best out of them.
اوكي، هو الدكتور بيقول اولا someone said we can beat other EBA by boxing. اوكي. آه، الدكتور بيقول ان هو يعني احنا زي ما نقدرش نغير للطفل، يعني ما نقدرش نلعب في الدي ان اي بتاعه، ما نقدرش نغيره، ما نقدرش نغير في التاريخ المرضي بتاعه ونغيره، بس نقدر نغير في البيئة اللي هو موجود فيها. كذلك هو لاحظ ده بالنسبة للعاملين في اي مجال او في اي مكان. انت برضو ما تقدرش تغير لهم الجزئيتين دول، بس تقدر تغير لهم البيئة المحيطة بيهم عشان تجعلهم يعني اكثر نجاحا في الجزئية دي. فهو حاليا بيلعب في نقطة ان البيئة هي اساس كل شيء. في حاجات ما تقدرش تغيرها لكن البيئة تقدر تغيرها، واحنا مسؤولين عن تغيير البيئة دي عشان نجعل حياتهم افضل. يس دكتور.
Okay,
اوكي.
awesome. Move on to next here. Now I like there is there's something called acceptance commitment therapy or training act, and I'd love to use this particular visual. An act is like a form of mindfulness. It's a way to make sure that we are aware of how we think and feel, and if we're behaving in alignment with our values and what's important to us. So I want to start with this because in any organization, for any leadership, we need to be very clear about what our values are. Now, values are a way of being and doing, like respect, integrity, traveling, relationships, collaboration. All these are like buckets, right? And
اوكي.
values are made up, and I'll come around this. Values are made up of behaviors. Now, a lot of people are not aware of what their own values are. I believe everybody needs to be aware of their values. So on this bottom left-hand side are what we call these are our thoughts and feelings and bodily sensations. They are what we call covert behaviors, and we call them covert behaviors because we can only see those inside of us. We can't see, nobody else can see what we're thinking, feeling. Does that make sense, Ahmed?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want me to pause on that, or do you want me to keep going through the matrix?
I want to ask a question, please, because before I translate and you continue. You mean motivation operation, or what is this? I can't see.
The
What is
values down
inside?
here, values are a functional response class,
Function
right? So it's a
response.
group, right? So if I say that, if I say, well, you value respect, right? And maybe in your culture, respect is in most cultures, respect's an important thing. Then I would say to you, what behaviors make up respect, right? What are the behaviors we need to engage in that show respect?
Okay, what do you mean by vowels? Means يعني if the student need to travel, if the student need to eat, what do you mean by this?
Well, I was giving examples of values. There are different values. Like Ahmed, what's important to you? What's important to you in schools?
Important to
learning?
me is what?
Is learning important?
Yeah, learning is important.
Okay, so I would say, what behaviors do people engage in that increase the likelihood that people will learn? Right? That's a functional response class, right? These behaviors, if you engage in these, will produce learning outcomes. Values are not goals. You can't achieve values. You can have values-driven goals, right? But learning is just important. So we got to figure out what we need to do that's going to help produce learning outcomes. And we can certainly turn those outcomes into goals, but learnings are values. Values are pretty consistent. Does that make sense?
يعني I need to be sure about that before I translate it. يعني
yeah, sure.
You mean learning is your value?
A value. A value.
About me. To other is not vowel to them, maybe not vowel to them. So I need to search about what vowel on others.
We want to see if you're a leader, we need to know what our shared values are. What's important to us as a group, right?
Yes. Okay. هو بيقول اول حاجه لو انت هتكون الليدر في المكان ده، فانت لازم تبحث او تشير مع التيم اللي معاك ايه الاهتمامات الخاصه بيهم. يعني انا بالنسبه لي التعلم شيء كويس، ممكن يكون لحد تاني القيمه بتاعته في حاجه مثلا ان هو ياخد فلوس، فانت هتشتغل على القيمه دي. حاجه ثالثه هو مثلا قيمته ان هو ينجح في العمل مثلا ويترقى، فانت هتشتغل على القيمه دي. فانت محتاج تعرف القيمه عند كل واحد عشان تقدر تشتغل عليها. يس دكتور.
Okay. And so you covered the covert behaviors. Did you cover this right here, the covert behaviors?
No, I'm coming to it. Can you
Okay.
say it again? Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. So covert behaviors are our thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations, right? They show up within us. And we call them covert because covert means hidden. It means only we can observe those things, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes we have these thoughts and feelings that are bad. We feel angry, we feel anxious, we feel sad, right? So go ahead and translate that right now before I move on to the
Yeah.
next.
بيتكلم كمان انك لازم تكون مراعي الكفر بيهيفير، يعني السلوك الداخلي الغير ظاهر عندهم. هل هو متضايق؟ هل هو فرحان؟ يعني هو بيتعامل معاك، هل هو يعني مبسوط؟ هل هو طيب حاليا جعان؟ we can say doctor vowels is show behavior what do you need, and covered behavior is something inside يعني people can't see it.
Values are what's important to you, right?
Yeah, and
Covert
covered
behaviors are
behavior,
what's inside of you.
yeah, what you are feeling.
Yes. And
Yeah.
thinking.
اوكي، يبقى الفاولز تاني اللي هو قالها انت هتهتم بالحاجات اللي عندها قيمه بالنسبه للشخص ده، وتهتم كمان بالمشاعر بتاعته. يس دكتور.
Okay, now, if you're in a school, right, and
Yeah.
you're either a classroom leader, a school leader, a district leader, whatever it is, right? Let's say it's a teacher who's a classroom leader.
Yeah.
Let's say you value learning and you value a positive culture, right? You want people to be happy in your classroom. And
Okay.
but you feel stressed. You feel like your students aren't going to learn. You get mad when they're misbehaving, right? Well, let's say you get mad when they're misbehaving and you come up here and you engage in these behaviors, right? You yell at the students. You say, "Stop doing that now." And you get really mad at them, right? And you punish them.
Yeah.
Well, it might work, right? It's because the student behaves, but these behaviors are misaligned with your values, right? They're not aligned with the value of having a positive relationship or whatever's important to you over here. We do it because it works immediately. And Ahmed, we know it works. It's called negative reinforcement, right? It's
Yeah.
allowing us to escape this feeling. Think about if you're anxious about something and this is why people do drugs. This is why they drink, right? Because it relieves this feeling of anxiety. But it's winning the battle, but losing the war. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. But I need example to يعني contact between vowels and covered behavior and escape behavior.
Right. So I value happy students and engaged students in the classroom, right? I value positive interactions. Okay. That's a value.
Okay.
I get upset if my students are misbehaving. So inside my head, I feel mad. I feel anger towards them. And when I feel this way, I engage and I start yelling at them. I start forcing them to do things, right? Well, it works, but it's misaligned with my values. It's not in alignment with the way I want to be and do, right? It's misaligned.
Yeah, you means if you sometime you have to cover your feelings.
Sometimes, well, I'll get to that in a second. I'm not there yet. I want to say that again, like let's say you value healthy living. Okay.
I will give you example. My values is I need to learn.
Okay, like learning.
Okay, covered behavior will be like
I'm tired.
I'm tired. Okay, so skip behavior will be
I lay on the couch and I avoid doing my work.
I go where?
I sit on the couch and I watch TV instead of engaging in learning.
Okay, then what the fourth one?
That's where I'm going to get to next, right? The fourth one is that says, first of all, I need to know what's important to me. I need to know what shows up for me. And this becomes an antecedent, Ahmed, right? Antecedent to these behaviors. I need to be aware that these escape motivated behaviors are winning the battle but losing the war. They're functioning for negative reinforcement, right? But it's misaligned with my values. So what do I need to do? Well, I need to accept that I feel this way and engage in committed behavior. So instead of laying on the couch, I need to do this replacement behavior, right? I need to pick up a book. I need to, watch a webinar. I need to do whatever, right? Read a little bit, go to something, right? And if I do that well enough and long enough, I'm now moving towards my values. For a teacher, instead of yelling at the kids, I need to correct them privately, right? I need to focus more on positively reinforcing good behaviors and correcting them privately and pre-planning, right? I need to create engaging lessons because that engages the students in learning more, right? Even though I feel bad, even though I'm mad, I need to do the right thing regardless of how I'm feeling. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, but I need example about your coaching.
My coaching?
Yeah, your boxing.
Okay. All right. So,
Okay.
all right. Well, how about public speaking? This is a big one for everybody because a lot of people have fear of public speaking. Okay. Let me do
Yeah.
one for that. I value disseminating the science of human behavior. I value helping, I value sharing because I really want to help people better help themselves and others. It's my mission in life.
Okay.
I used to have massive fear of public speaking, right? We're public speaking right now, right? I used
Yeah.
to fear it bad. So people would ask me to give a talk, right? When I was part of a team. And I would say,
Yeah.
whoa, I don't want to do that because I would have all these thoughts that show up like, I'm going to embarrass myself, that people are going to see that I don't really know this stuff well enough, right? And I'd feel anxious
Okay.
inside, right? And so I said, well, no, I don't want to do the talk. How about I do this? How about I create the PowerPoint? How about I do the research? How about I set up the room where we're going to present? And they would say, okay, that's great. And I would get immediate sense of relief. The anxiety would go right away. And you think about how good it feels to have anxiety just go away, right? But as I was doing this, I was moving away from my values because my values were disseminating the science. It was sharing information with people. And so I was winning the battle but losing the war because I was moving away from what's important to me. So what did I have to do? Well, I need to recognize when I feel this way, behave this way. This behavior was misaligned my values and I need to commit to some other things. I needed to learn how to speak slower. I need to know my content better. I need to learn how to sequence my trainings better, right? And then but that doesn't mean I still wasn't feeling anxious or had these thoughts. But I committed to doing these behaviors regardless of how I was feeling. Because in the end, it's how we behave that matters most. Because as I started to do this better, I would see people looking at me. They would smile. They would thank me, right? They would say that made a lot of sense. It made a difference. And as I did that more and more, moved towards my values, these thoughts and feelings went away, right? But if you try to just change your thoughts and feelings, that's like holding a ball underwater. We need to focus on the right behaviors and commit to those. Does that make sense?
يا اوكي، هقول ان انت لازم تركز على 3 حاجات ثم هتوصل للحاجه الرابعه. اول حاجه، ايه هي الحاجه اللي ذو قيمه عندك؟ يعني مثلا التعلم، هو ضرب مثال على التعلم، انت بتحب التعلم. طيب، الكفرد بيهيفير، الحاجه اللي جواك لما انت بتتعلم مثلا بتحس بتعب، ده الكفرد بيهيفير او الاحساس الداخلي. طيب، المفروض ان انت بتعمل اسكيب للبيهيفير ده اللي هو التعب عشان توصل للقيمه بتاعتك اللي هي التعلم. بتعمل ايه؟ فبتبدا مثلا تخرج، تتفرج على التلفزيون، تعمل حاجه تنسيك او تتخطى بيها المشاعر اللي جواك دي عشان ترجع تاني في الاخر توصل للكونتيننت بيهيفير ده اللي هو الحاجه اللي انت عايز تربطها بالقيمه بتاعتك. ادى مثال مثلا اخر، هو مثلا بيحب يساعد الناس، دي القيمه الاكثر، القيمه اللي عنده ان هو عايز يساعد الناس ويتكلم عن مساعده الناس. طيب، الكفرد بيهيفير ساعات هو بيتعب من ده، او هو ساعات مثلا بيتكلم بسرعه فالناس مش فاهماه، دي مشاعر داخليه عند الناس. طب هو يتجاوز السلوك ده ازاي؟ بانه يعدل في الحاجات اللي هو حس بيها تجاه الناس ده عشان يوصل للقيمه الثانيه بتاعته. يس دكتور.
Okay. All right. Awesome. So now I'm going to make the switch, right? Because I think in leadership, the reason I talked about that, because I believe in leadership, we need to understand our values and we need to understand the people that we're leading, right? With their values,
Yeah.
what is important to the people? What's important to the community? If you're a teacher, you're the classroom leader. You need to understand what your students value. And those are their reinforcers, right? If we talk about pain points and values, what we're talking about is positive and negative reinforcers, right? What's
Yeah.
important to us, what we want to get away, right? And in my experience, most of the issues when I go into any school, any organization, wherever it is, comes down to those two things, leadership and systems. So I'm going to unpack what both of those are shortly.
Okay, what do you mean by system?
That's what I'm going to unpack. I'm going to teach you
Oh,
what a system is in just a second.
اوكي، هو بيقول حاليا المفروض تكون فهمت الرسمه دي. انت عشان تكون ليدر شيب اللي هو الشخص الابيض ده لازم تكون مهتم بحاجتين جدا: القيمه اللي عند الناس اللي شغاله عندك، ايه القيمه اللي هم بيحبوها او انت هتسعى ليها. رقم 2، احساسهم ومشاعرهم. وقال ان هو كل المدارس او معظم المدارس اللي راحها بيكون المشكله في حاجتين. المشكله في حاجتين، رقم واحد الاداره، يعني بيكون مشكله في الاداره ومشكله في السيستم، وهو هيشرح يعني ايه مشكله في الاداره يعني ايه مشكله في السيستم دلوقتي. يس دكتور.
Okay. So, first of all, we're going to start with systems, right? Now, systems keep people on track. They make everybody's job easier, and they should be deliberately designed to deliver positive reinforcement for value-added behavior. So let me explain. I'm gonna unpack a system more, right? But
اوكي.
I'm gonna give you a simplified understanding of a system. When you drive to work every day,
اوكي.
there's a system that you drive in, right? There's nobody telling you what to do. There are lines in the road, there are street
Yeah.
lights, there are stop signs, right? And all this stuff generates rule governed behavior and it brings your behavior under stimulus control, right? It's the environment that tells your
Yeah.
behavior what to do. And without a good system in place, there would be chaos, there would be confusion, there would be people, well meaning people, trying to produce a result, right? Get to their destination, but there would be car accidents, right? There would be people getting tickets and losing their license and all this stuff because the system is not guiding their behavior.
اوكي. يعني you explain all that. Yes. Last one should be designed to drive.
To to deliver positive
Deliver.
reinforcement for value added behavior, right?
That's mean. Could you tell it again?
A good system should be designed to deliver positive reinforcement for value added behavior. And I'll
اه.
explain what all that is in a little bit. I'm going to keep unpacking this further.
اوكي. هو بقول يعني الجود سيستم بيعتمد على ثلاث حاجات. رقم واحد كيب ستاف اون تراك، يعني بتحط الستاف بتاعك او الناس اللي تحتك لو انت ليدرشيب على الطريق الصحيح. مثلا لو انت رايح الشغل كل يوم، ما حدش بيقول لك انت هتركب العربيه وبعد كده تمشي في الطريق ده وتروح في ده. انت بتكون عارف الطريق ده ازاي، بتكون عارفه عن طريق اشارات المرور وبتكون حفظته قبل كده. فانت لازم تعمل لهم كده طريقه معينه انت هتعمل بيها الشغل، هتمشي واحد اتنين تلاته. رقم اتنين ميك يور جوب ايزير، يعني حاول تشوف الحاجات الاسهل ليهم. يعني مثلا حاليا مثلا بدل ما تكتب التقارير بخط الايد، خليها لو اسهل ليهم مثلا بالكمبيوتر يعملوها بالكمبيوتر. مثلا اللي بيشتغلوا مثلا في اوقات معينه مش بيحبوا مثلا يشتغلوا من الساعه 10 للساعه 3، ممكن تخلي الدوام فليكسبل مثلا تخليه من 8 ل 2 مثلا يعني. فانت بتحاول تخلي الشغل اسهل ليهم. اخر حاجه انت بتحاول تصمم لهم جداول تعزيز ايجابيه، بمعنى انت لو عملت ده وعملت ده وعملت ده فهيكون عندك التعزيز ده. فثلاث حاجات اختصارهم بانك هتحطهم على الطريق، تحط قواعد تخلي الشغل اسهل، توفر لهم معززات. يس دكتور.
Okay, now behavior analysis should be involved with systems because systems are made up of processes, processes are made up of tasks, and tasks are made up of behavior, right? And it's about these interlocking behaviors, what we call meta contingencies, which I'm going to explain in just a second. So that'll be on the next slide. So that's the systems
اوكي.
are made up of processes, processes are made up of tasks, tasks are made up of behaviors.
اوكي. هو هيشرح الجاي يعني ازاي يعني البروسيس اللي هو مثلا الخطوات، البروسيس اللي هو النظام، مثلا النظام بتاع العمل او التخطيط بتاع العمل بيقول لك على تاسكات معينه هتعمل كذا وكذا وكذا، بعد كده كل تاسك بيطلع منه سلوكيات. يس دكتور. هو هيشرح
Okay.
بالتفصيل حالا.
Right. Now I'm going to show you a very simplified version of a system that I hope sticks with everybody's in mind. I hope they screenshot it. It's really powerful. It's in all my books, by the way. All right. So this is a school system, and systems should be deliberately designed beginning with the end in mind. What important result do you want? Okay. What is the
اوكي.
result we're trying to give? Student achievement. Maybe it's reducing behavioral challenges, maybe it's producing happier learners, it's got to be some sort of measurable result. Do you want me to stop as I go, or do you want me to go through the whole thing first?
It's okay يعني 3 by 3.
3 by 3. Okay.
Yeah.
So in order to produce that result, let's say we wanted to produce, let's say
You will
behavior.
start by learner now. Yes.
So once you have a result, right, we now go say, okay, if we want to produce student achievement, right, or we want to reduce behavior challenges, right, we want to reduce suspensions, reduce fights or restraints. What behaviors does the learner need to engage in? And we'll say, well, they need to follow expectations. Okay. If we want the student to follow, or the learner to follow expectations, what do we need the teacher or the classroom leader to do that? Well, they got to create a classroom management plan. They need to teach the expectations. They need to reinforce the expectations. They need to correct behavior immediately and calmly and consistently, right? So I'll stop there. So let's start with the end in mind. What behaviors do the learners need to do, and what's the teacher need to do to get that learner to engage in those behaviors?
Could you repeat number 3 again, please?
So so that is, if we want the learner to follow expectations, what does the teacher, right, the classroom leader need to do in order to ensure that the learner is following the expectations?
I think he has to give him instruction.
Maybe, yeah, they got to create a classroom management plan. They need to teach the expectations. They need to reinforce the expectations. They need to correct them, right? Privately, right? But the point being that if we're going to get the students to behave, it means the teacher needs to do something in order to produce that, because the teacher is the most important part of the environment, right?
Okay, like example, if the learner is fighting, the classroom leader should make what?
Well, first of all, I would say to prevent fighting, right? I would want the classroom leader a couple things. Why are they fighting, right? So we want to make sure that there are clear expectations. Let's use the driving example. In the driving example, you have a result. You want to get to your destination, okay?
Yes.
And let's say the learner is the driver. The driver
Okay.
needs to drive appropriately. Well, if we want the driver to drive appropriately, what does say what's the state need to do? Well, the state needs to ensure that there's good driving lessons, right? And to make sure that the learner can drive appropriately, right? That's the driving instructor. Well,
Okay.
what's the state need to do? They got to create a policies, and they got to, a system for doing that. And they need to create some sort of driver's license bureau or whatever. Because what we're doing here is we're chaining behaviors together. So coming back to the classroom, if we
Uh,
don't want the student to fight, we want them to be on task. Well, and that's following expectations. The teacher needs to create a system in the classroom management system. They need to teach and reinforce appropriate behaviors. They need to correct behaviors. Students should know what's going to happen. Like when you drive, you know what's going to happen. If you do the right thing, you get to your destination safely and efficiently. If you do the wrong thing, you could get in an accident. You can get a ticket. You could lose your license, right? There's all these things that can happen.
uh,
But ultimately, because we can't change the learner's history and we can't change their DNA, all we can do is change the environment around them that gets the best out of them. That's the responsibility of the classroom leader.
okay. I now know the learner and the classroom leader. The third one, educational support. I
Yeah,
should
let's
translate
say
before
that
go to
is,
it. اوكي I will translate it before we go to it. هو بيقول ان
yeah.
احنا عشان نغير سلوك طفل او نغير سلوك حتى موظف، لازم نمشي على 5 خطوات، او كلنا لازم نشتغل في جزئيه واحده. ادانا مثال، مثلا هنفترض ان الطفل او الليرنر او المتعلم اللي هو رقم واحد ده هو السائق اللي هيتعلم السواقه. فهو لازم المفترض عليه ان هو هيركز او هينتبه. طيب هيبقى دور الكلاس روم ليدر ايه، او المدرس بتاع الصف او اللي هيشتغل مع الطفل، هيكون دوره ان هو يدرسه التعليمات. يقول له الاشاره مثلا الحمراء دي بتقف، الاشاره الخضراء دي بتمشي، الاشاره الصفراء دي بتنتظر، خلي بالك لما تلاقي الاشاره دي ممنوع انك تعمل باركينج او حاجه زي كده. طيب ادى مثال برضو تاني على التعلم. نفترض ان انت الطفل اللي يعني هو في الصف بيعمل سلوكيات سلبيه، زي مثلا ان هو بيضرب زمايله. ده السلوك اللي احنا عايزين نعدله. فدور الكلاس روم ليدر ان هو يقول له لا انت ما ينفعش تعمل كده، ويوجهه ان انت لو عملت الصح ده هتاخد معزز، لو عملت الغلط ده هيحصل فيك كده. احنا لسه هنكمل البقيه وبعد كده هندي مثال موضح لكله. يس دكتور.
Okay. Now, if we want the teacher to develop a classroom management plan, do all those things, what does educator support, right? The teachers need to do. The trainers, for example, the coaches need to do. Well, they need to train the teachers in behavior management and classroom management, right? And they shouldn't just train, they need to follow up and coach them, right? To increase the likelihood that they'll engage in the right behaviors, right? All this good classroom management and everything. So that way they're giving the learners what they need. Right. So again, to bring out the best in learners, we got to bring out the best in the teachers. To bring out the best in teachers, we got to bring out the best in the educator support. So if we want the educator support to do this, what school leaders need to do? Well, they need to set the expectation that the teachers are going to be trained in classroom management. They need to provide the resources to do it, right? They need to allocate time on the schedule to do it. And if we want school leaders to do that, well, what's district leaders need to do? Well, they might need to set the tone and the vision that we're going to have positive schools and that we're going to use some sort of positive behavior supports or whatever it is like that. And in each case, if you see these, there needs to be metrics and feedback loops, right? So metrics that let us know how the learner's doing, right? And feedback loops that are not just going in one direction. It's feedback loops saying, here's how you're doing. How am I doing for you? Right? It should not just be one way. We need to check in with our stakeholders to find out, Are we doing a good job for them? You know, what can we do more or less or differently? We call that social validity, Ahmed. And then if you see at the bottom here, remember
Yeah,
I said that good systems should increase positive reinforcement for value added behavior. You see here, there's the values. Systems should be based, grounded in values. If you value learning, you value respect, you value cooperation. Well, we need to unpack what those behaviors are that align with those values. And then we need to deliberately focus on providing positive reinforcement for these value added behaviors in order to produce these outcomes. All these behaviors are linked, and we know that behavior occurs because of reinforcement, right? So we got to
yeah.
deliberately think about what kind of reinforcement can we deliver, right? And ultimately, we want the naturally occurring reinforcers to be there. But I'm going to share that on the next slide, so I don't want to confuse them. I'll share
Oh,
what that is in just a second.
okay. I understand, but I need example to connect all together. Give me one example and tell me this is a learner, this is classroom should do like 1, 2, 3.
Okay, with the learner, if we want to produce, if we want to reduce behavioral challenges, right? Suspensions in schools. You have
Behavioral channel. Okay, this is the learner. Okay.
so that's the measurable outcome. Let's say
Okay.
you got what kind of do you guys have suspensions in your like do you have suspensions or restraints in your schools or like what's a behavior? How do you measure behavioral problems out there?
I didn't get you ask about my supervision.
No, in schools, how do they measure behavior problems?
Uh, in the school, how they can measure the behavior problems, like they get like task list and say is doing or not doing
I'm
which
talking about
time.
for the whole school, all the data, the entire school.
Okay, the teachers, every teacher has class will observe his student and send the message for the big administration. This
Okay.
is me.
Yeah, that's it.
Uh,
So maybe we call it a discipline referral over here, right? So there's that data point. And let's say we're going to reduce discipline referrals. Let's say a school has right now they're getting 100 discipline referrals every month, okay, as
okay,
a measure. Does that make sense? So
yeah,
100 times teachers are reporting that we're having behavior challenges. Okay.
yeah.
So what do we need the learners to do? Well, we need the learners to follow expectations, right? Because if they're following expectations, there would be no
Expectation means
expectation means they're engaging in the right behaviors. It's what the teacher wants them to
we
do.
need them we need the student to make the right behavior.
The right behavior, that's right.
Yeah, okay.
So they need to raise their hand, they need to ask for help, they need to stay in the right area, right? They need to keep their hands and feet to themselves. It's what the teacher expects of the student. Those are expectations.
Yeah, okay, yes.
Okay. So if we want that to happen, what does the teacher need to do, the classroom leader? Well, they need to develop their expectations. They need to teach
I
their
need to give an
expectations.
instruction also, yes.
That's what I'm talking about. Instructing, right? Them in
Okay,
the expectations, right?
okay.
Now, if we want them to be able to do that well, what does the educator support need to do? The trainers, the coaches, right? Well, they need to teach the classroom leaders how to do that stuff. They need to coach them in doing that stuff.
Okay.
Does that make sense so far?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if we go up here, if we want the educator support to do that, well, what do we need school leaders to need to do? Well, they need to set the expectations for the whole school that we are going to engage in good classroom management, right? They need to allocate the resources, right? The time on the schedule, right? To be able to do this stuff. They need to make sure that the educator supports are actually going into the classroom and coaching the teachers.
Mm.
Uh, and if we want that to happen, a school leader, the district leader might say, hey, we're having a lot of behavioral challenges in our district. We want to use this positive framework to do this stuff, okay? And so they
Okay.
might set the expectation for the school leaders that they do that. And then in each case, there's got to be feedback loops. It's the classroom leader telling the learner how well they're doing or they're correcting behavior, right? But it's also asking them, how am I doing for you as a teacher? The educator support saying to the classroom leader, how was that training for you? Did you learn? How am I
Okay.
doing for you as a coach? The school leader saying to the educator support and the teachers, how am I doing? Yeah, hey, here's how you're doing in terms of performance, but how am I doing as the school leader for you and up the chain? So there's got to be these feedback loops, right?
Mm.
So in all cases, for all those behaviors that I laid out, following expectations, teaching the teachers, et cetera, the system needs to be deliberately designed to deliver positive reinforcement for those behaviors. We don't want to focus on punishing behavior. We want to focus on reinforcing the behaviors that are
Yeah.
going to eventually produce this outcome.
Okay. Last one, could you repeat it again? The distracted leader.
The district leader?
Yeah. What is his job in this?
That's the boss. That's like the CEO. That's who's the head of everything, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
I will translate. Now I get it.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
اوكي. بيقول نفترض مثلا احنا في مدرسه. هو دلوقتي يعني خلينا نختصر كل اللي هو قاله في كلمه ان احنا بنراعي التخصص وماشيين زي الهرم كده، ده بيسلم لده وده بيسلم لده وده بيسلم لده. فانا مثلا لو بتكلم على ان انا عايز اكون اداره مدرسيه كويسه، فانا مثلا عندي 100 طفل في المدرسه، او مثلا خلينا بنتكلم في فصل واحد. سوري انا اسف، خلينا بنتكلم في مدرسه مثلا المدرسه فيها 10 فصول، كل فصل مثلا فيه 30 طفل. المتعلمين احنا عايزين مثلا ندي للمتعلمين دول ان هم يحترموا المعلم، مثلا يذاكروا دروسهم، يعملوا واجباتهم، يكلموا المعلم باحترام. ده اللي احنا عايزين نعلمه في اول خطوه. ايه دور بقى مين اللي هيعلم الشخص ده الكلام ده؟ اللي هو الليدر بتاع الصف نفسه، اللي هو الكلاس روم ليدر. يعني المعلم هو اللي هيدي التعليمات للطفل ويبدا يقول له المفروض انك تعمل كذا وتعمل كذا وتعمل كذا، وهتاخد تعزيز لما تعمل ده وهتتعاقب لما تعمل ده. طب مين بقى اللي بيعلم المدرس ان هو يقول للطفل الكلام ده بالاسلوب ده او بالتكنيك ده او بالطريقه المعينه دي؟ اللي بيكون سوبرفايزر فوق المدرس، اللي هو الموجه. فيبقى دلوقتي كده المعلم بيوجه الطفل، واللي بيوجه الطفل واللي بيوجه المعلم هو اللي فوق. فالموجه بيتعامل مع المعلمين، ثم اللي تحته اللي هو المعلمين بيتعاملوا مع الاطفال، ثم بيجي دور مدير المدرسه في الاخر ان هو يشرف على ده كله ويشوف هل السوبرفايزر اعطى التعليمات بدقه للمعلمين، ثم هل المعلمين طبقوا التعليمات دي بدقه مع الاطفال. طب هل في حاجات معينه، التدرج الوظيفي او الهرم الوظيفي، هل محتاجين ان احنا نزود حاجه؟ هل بيتعامل السوبرفايزر مع المعلمين بشكل كويس؟ هل المعلمين بيتعاملوا مع الاطفال بشكل كويس؟ وهكذا. ثم بيراجع كل ده مع السي او اللي هو قد يكون مسؤول عن كذا منظمه او كذا مجلس. من الاخر هو تدرج الوظيفي. انا عشان اوصل لسلوك صح نضربها على الEBA، لازم يكون في تدرج. انا عندي طفل بيعمل سلوك غلط، فانا بشوف السلوك ده وببدا اديله التعليمات، بس لازم اراجع مع السوبرفايزر بتاعي، والسوبرفايزر بتاعي بيراجع مع كذا حد اللي هو تحته برضه، ثم بنرجع للسي او. يس دكتور.
Okay. So that's going to be everything else going to be much simpler for this. The systems can be very sophisticated, right? So
Yeah.
it's showing that a system it's all comes down to behavior and results, the results that we want to produce and chaining behavior up, right? What we call performance engineering, right? So okay, go ahead and translate that. You're on mute again.
Yes, doctor. Sorry.
That's okay. Okay.
You said this is shunning behavior or shunning analysis.
We're calling this performance engineering, right? It's like behavior chaining, but we're chaining performance, because each performer it's interlocking contingencies, right? It's this behavior becomes an antecedent for that, and this behavior becomes an antecedent for that. That consequence becomes that. You don't have to explain that because that might be confusing, but it's all interlocking, right? It's interlocking up the chain.
Okay. هو
Okay.
بيتكلم على ان اللي احنا عملناه ده اسمه تسلسل وظيفي او behavior chaining. يعني كل جزء لما انجزه بنتقل للجزء اللي بعده، وانجزه بنتقل للجزء اللي بعده. هو هيدي مثال على ده في فيديو دلوقتي. يس دكتور.
Okay. Now, remember I said down here that good systems increase positive reinforcement for value-added behavior, right? We want all these people to engage in leadership behaviors. I'll explain what leadership is in just a second, but let's talk about what positive reinforcement is and what it's not and why it's important, right? What we know is that all behavior, with the exception of reflexes, occurs because of reinforcement. And there's two types of reinforcement.
Yes.
There's negative reinforcement and there's positive reinforcement. And negative and positive are not good or bad. They're just subtracted and added, right?
Mm.
We engage in people and behaviors because something's added, and sometimes it can be something bad. That's why people do drugs, because it adds this sense of euphoria, for
Yeah.
example, right? Or
Uh,
maybe we take an aspirin and it allows us to escape a headache. That's a good thing. But
yeah.
when it comes to performance, when it comes to driving performance, it does become kind of good or bad, right? When we use fear of consequences to drive behavior, people will do just enough to get by, right? This compliance line, and only when you're looking. I don't know how it is in your area, Ahmed, but in my area, there's only one time we definitely do the speed limit, and it's when law enforcement's looking, right? Because we do just enough to get by, and only when the police are looking. And we don't want people in an organization to
Only you have
perform.
to limit your speed when police is looking.
Yes, when the police are looking, you slow down because you don't want to get in trouble.
There is no radar.
Huh?
There is no radar.
We
The
have
camera
speed
feeding.
limits. We have a
Yeah.
speed limit, right? Let's say the speed limit is 60 miles an hour over here, right?
Yeah.
But people will push it. They'll do 70 miles an hour, but they see the cop and they slow down. And then as soon as
Yeah.
the cop's in the law enforcement is in the rearview mirror, they speed up again because
Yeah.
their behavior of doing the speed limit is under contingencies of negative reinforcement, fear of consequences. In an organization, in a classroom, in a school, in a district, in any organization, when you use fear of consequences, which is negative reinforcement, people will do just enough to get by only when you're looking, and it produces all sorts of other bad outcomes. When people feel afraid, they get tunnel vision, right? They get afraid and they start to focus on just engaging in the behaviors that are going to allow them to escape getting out of trouble. My fighters are successful because I teach them really good defense. And when you teach them really good defense, they can slip, they can roll, right? They feel very confident, and it opens up their whole
Mm.
offensive repertoire, right? So
Right.
if we want to bring out the best in people, the only way to get people to go above and beyond, even when we're not looking, is to get them in touch with positive reinforcement. Now, over here, right, if this is performance over time, people tend to engage in training people. They give goal setting, planning, right? Telling people what to do. That's all great. But Ahmed, those are all antecedent strategies. And what we know is that antecedent strategies might get behavior going, but they won't keep behavior going. The only thing that keeps behavior going are the consequences that it produces. And when it produces positive reinforcement for them, people are going to keep doing things when you're not looking. We as leaders need to connect, right? From the training, let's say it's teaching a student expectation, we're telling them doing a great job, right? But
Yeah.
all of a sudden they say like, well, wait, and they're using rewards for like reading or math. The goal to be that reading or that math, the learning becomes the positive reinforcer. They're learning for a love of learning. They would like to read because of the reading, right? That's a naturally occurring positive reinforcer. For the teacher, they're using some sort of strategies because they're seeing the students are engaged more, that they're behaving better, that they feel better, that the school leader is giving them positive feedback. All these are naturally occurring positive reinforcers. When we use things like additional reinforcers, like tokens or something like that, that's just connecting. It's helping people to behave well enough and long enough till they can produce the naturally occurring consequences, the reinforcers, which is the ultimate goal. I'll let you
Ah.
translate that. Yeah.
Yeah, I will translate, but before I need to be sure with that. You speak about reinforcement. Reinforcement should increase the behavior. Okay.
That's the only
There
way
is
we know
two.
if something's a reinforcer.
Yeah. There is two types: positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement. Positive reinforcement, should I add something? Negative reinforcement, should I remove something
No,
the
not
student
should.
doesn't need? Yeah.
Not should.
Okay.
Something is added as a result of your behavior. Yes. Not should
O-
I. Something has
Okay.
resulted. Yeah. Yeah.
In the picture now, I think it's a bear. Negative behavior is like go on down, go on down, go on down.
That's not
Yes.
negative behavior. That's people doing just enough to get by, right? People, when you use fear of consequences, negative reinforcement, people will do just enough to get by. You don't perform at a high level.
Yeah.
You just perform to avoid getting into trouble.
Could you give me example about that?
When I'm speeding, I do the speed limit only in the presence of police because I want to avoid getting a
Yeah.
ticket.
Okay. About positive reinforcement.
Positive reinforcement, right? So let's say I love reading. Nobody's got to tell me to go read. I go read on my own when nobody's looking, right? I'm going above and beyond. I love doing this stuff, right? It's positively reinforcing to me. But let's say I didn't love reading, and it was like you, Ahmed, were teaching me to read, and you might come out and encourage me. You might say you're doing a great job reading, you know? You might even give me like some extra time on my computer or, let me watch TV.
Yeah.
With the goal being that, like, oh, wait, this reading is really great. I'd like it. But you have to help me with behaving well enough and long enough that I produce that naturally occurring positive reinforcer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, this will be positive reinforcement. If I don't like reading and you said me, I will give you like 10 minutes in computer game if you read this picture. It will be a positive reinforcement.
Yes, but with the goal being that's a contrived reinforcer. The goal being that you do it well enough, long enough that you start to love positive reinforcement on your own, right? Because
Uh,
the other way to do it is just to force them, go read now. That's negative reinforcement. That's fear of punishment. If you use fear of punishment to drive behavior, they're never going to love reading, right? We want to
uh,
make it deliberately designed positive reinforcement so eventually they love reading. But if you pair reading with something that's aversive, you need to do it now. They're going to do just enough to get by, and only when you're looking, and they're going to end up hating reading.
okay. Can we apply it in the work?
The performance, yeah. If you're right now, Ahmed, right? Let's say I ask you, I'm a leader and I set let's say, do you want me to do a teacher or just an organization? Where do you want me to do it? I can do it in
Uh,
any setting.
teacher.
Okay, so a teacher. So let's say the school leader sets the expectation that you're going to do classroom management, right? And they said we value learning and all that stuff, but the teacher doesn't believe it. They don't believe this classroom management stuff's going to work,
Yeah.
right? So they say, well, listen, I need you to do it. I'm going to come by and check on you, right? And they show up and they give them a token. They say, you're doing a great job, keep it up. But the teacher is just doing it because the leader's looking, right? But they're getting a little token for it. But all of a sudden they look and they see, wait a second, the students are more engaged. They're learning more. Their behavior is better. All those are naturally occurring reinforcers. When the teacher's able to see their behavior produce those results will take over. The school leader doesn't have to come through anymore because it's a naturally occurring positive reinforcer. Does that make sense?
يا هو اتكلم حاليا على ان اولا هو يعني معتمد شويه على التعزيز وبيبعد شويه عن العقاب، فقال لك ان التعزيز ينقسم لنوعين. اولا التعزيز او الرينفورسمنت لازم يزود السلوك، اذا السلوك ما زادش معناها ان ده مش معزز بالنسبه للشخص اللي قدامك او الطفل اللي قدامك. قال ان في نوعين من التعزيز، نوع ايجابي ونوع سلبي. النوع الايجابي ده ان انت بتدي للطفل او تدي للشخص اللي قدامك حاجه هو بيحبها لما يعمل سلوك معين. مثلا يعني مثلا تقول له انت ذاكرت الساعه دي فانت هتاخد مثلا ربع ساعه لعب على الكمبيوتر، يبقى انت كده عززته تعزيز ايجابي. اما التعزيز السلبي فانت بتشيل من عليه حاجه هو يعني مش بيحبها. زي مثلا يعني هو مش بيحب مثلا مثلا هو جاب فول ماركت في الامتحان او قفل الدرجه، فتقول له طب خلاص انت هترتاح من المذاكره لمده ساعه مثلا، يعني او ترتاح من المذاكره لمده يوم. فانت كده بتشيل عليه حاجه هو ما كانش بيحبها، ده اسمه تعزيز تعزيز سلبي. ادى مثال بالسرعه كمان يعني. ادى مثال بالسرعه، قال لك ان مثلا الطريق سرعته مثلا 100 كيلو مثلا في الساعه، فانت المفروض تمشي بال 100 كيلو في الساعه دي. طب نفترض انت كنت ماشي على 120 ساعه، قال لك ان النيجاتيف رينفورسمنت اوقات بيرتبط بمشاهده السلوك ده او متابعته. يعني مثلا انت ماشي على 120 كيلو في الساعه والمفروض ان انت المفروض تمشي على 100 كيلو بس، مجرد ما تشوف البوليس بتنزل سرعتك، مجرد ما البوليس يختفي بترجع تاني للسرعه بتاعتك تاني. فده اسمه تعزيز سلبي. انت بتشيل الحاجه اللي الاشخاص بقى كمان اللي حواليك مش بيحبوه، يعني البوليس مش عايزك تزيد عن سرعه مثلا 120، فبتنزل اول ما تشوفه وتعلى تاني بعد ما السلوك يظهر. يعني عشان كده النيجاتيف رينفورسمنت ده طالع ونازل، اما البوزيتيف رينفورسمنت دايما طالع لفوق. يس دكتور.
Okay, great. Now let's go ahead and we're going to move on to so I talked about systems and how it needs to be deliberately focused on delivering positive reinforcement, right? Which is
اوكي.
fundamental to success, right? Especially if you value positive outcomes. All sorts of positive outcomes come when you deliberately deliver positive reinforcement. Some people may say, "Hey, you should love reading because it's going to help you later on. You should want to do math." Well, it's like me saying you should want to do this or that. How's that working for you? If it is that easy, we wouldn't be here, right? We need to foster a love for learning. Right? We have to foster a love for teaching, and all these things. People say, well, you should do it for a teacher because you're getting paid. Well, if they don't love what they're doing, they're going to do just enough to get by and only when you're looking. But if they love it because they're producing valued outcomes, if they're seeing that students are learning more, they feel good about their job and all those things, they're going to go above and beyond. If they don't feel that way, then they're not. And part of getting them to feel that way is equipping them with the knowledge and skills to be successful, right? If they're able to perform very well, they're going to produce these successful outcomes and they're going to be much more likely to be engaged and love their work.
That's mean you need to teach him how can he reinforce himself.
No, well, we need to know their values, and if they engage in the behaviors, they're going to produce the right. If they love learning, the reinforcement is in the learning. When they see the students learning, that's the reinforce for them. That's going to want to keep them doing it,
يعني
right?
you have to work about vowels. You have to up your
Values.
vowel on this.
Yes, you have to know what their values are. Remember, I said at the
Yeah.
beginning, your system needs to be built on values.
Is this is going up, he will reinforce himself, or
All,
will
all,
be reinforced to him.
well, the environment's reinforcing them, right? Not himself. Like if the teacher really values learning and they engage in a behavior and they see the students are learning, the teacher's going to do that more because it's getting them in touch with positive reinforcement.
بقول لك ان الافضل كمان انك تشتغل انك تعلي له قيمه الشيء وتخلي البيئه هي اللي تعززه او ان هو يعزز نفسه. يعني هو مش بيحب يتعلم مثلا، فانت تفضل تشتغل معاه لحد ما هو يحب التعلم. لما يحب التعلم هتكون المذاكره دي بالنسبه له هي التعزيز، مش هيكون مستني ان انت تعززه او ان حد تاني يعززه او ان البيئه كمان تعززه. هديك مثال يعني واحد مش بيحب مثلا يعني لما واحد بيذاكر في الثانويه العامه بيدخل مثلا الكليه مرموقه فالناس بتحترمه، ساعتها هيعلي قيمه التعلم عنده، فبالتالي وهو بيذاكر هيكون حاسس ان ده بالنسبه له كمان معزز. يس دكتور.
Okay. How am I doing for everybody right now? So far, is it going okay? Is it making sense to everybody, Ahmed?
Yeah, very good.
Okay. All right, good. All right. So now we're going to shift to leadership because remember, talked about leadership, right? I want people to engage in leadership up the chain, okay? Everybody can engage in leadership, right? Now, I believe that, of course, I'm a fighter and a behavior
Yeah.
analyst. So think about a great leader without a solid system is like a skilled fighter with no game plan. On the other side, a good system without a dynamic leader is like having a perfect plan but no champion to execute it.
هو ترجم بيقول لك ان القائد العظيم لازم يكون في نظام صلب وصارم كانه مقاتل بالظبط. لو انك لعبت بدون خطه او انك يعني مشيت في المؤسسه بدون خطه فانت مش قائد ناجح ولا هتنجح فيه بعدين، بل بالعكس ان العكس هو اللي هيحصل. يعني لو انت ما كنتش ماشي بخطه واضحه مع الناس المحيطين بيك، سواء انت قائد في مدرسه او انت هتعالج سلوك طفل او ما الى اخره، لو ما كنتش ماشي على قوانين معينه ومحدده زيك زي المقاتل بالظبط اللي ماشي على خطه، الموضوع ممكن ينعكس عليك. That's mean you have to make like a specific rules for everything and work on it.
That's it. Yeah, that's so much.
Yeah,
You have to. It's what people need to do, right? The system, like driving, and then how we got to get them to do that. It's the leadership, right?
يعني مثلا دلوقتي القانون القياده مثلا، تخيل هو قال لك كل واحد يسوق زي ما هو عايز بالسرعه اللي هو عايزها، يدخل يمين في الوقت اللي هو عايزه ويدخل شمال في الوقت اللي هو عايزه من غير ما يدي اشارات. المكان ده اي حد يقف فيه، المكان ده حتى مثلا تلاقي الدنيا كلها ساحت، كله ماشي بدماغه. لكن هم حاطين قوانين معينه، في الشارع ده تمشي 60، في الشارع ده تمشي 100، المفروض تركن ده، الباركنج ده خاص للحوامل، الباركنج ده خاص مثلا للمعاقين، فتلاقي قوانين معينه ماشي عليها. There is a question outside of the workshop. In fighting books, you make plan to yourself.
Oh yeah. So
How?
I have a plan. Like so I take a look at the opponent, right? And I find out what are the strengths and the weaknesses. I literally like do a SWOT analysis, right? So SWOT analysis, something you do in organizations.
Yeah.
So I do a SWOT analysis, right? And I think about, what are the opponent's strengths and the weaknesses and where are their opportunities and threats, right? And so I design either my approach to that opponent or the approach of my fighter. So if I got a guy that's a really good wrestler in MMA, but not a good striker, well, part of the plan is going to be defend takedowns, but use our hands a lot, right?
هو انا سالته سؤال خارج الموضوع، بقول له انت حتى يعني في الفايتنج بتاعك بتستخدم تحليل السلوك التطبيقي او بتعمل خطه وانت داخل تلعب البوكسنج ده؟ فقال لي اه طبعا، انا ببص نقاط الضعف ونقاط القوه عند الخصم بتاعي، وبركز على الزوايا، وبشوف الديزاين كله، الاضاءه جايه منين وده منين والجماهير فين، بحيث وانا داخل اشوف هدخله من نقاط الضعف ازاي، وهعمل ايه بالظبط بالخطوات لحد ما اكسب المباراه دي. احييه بصراحه. يس دكتور.
Yeah, by the way, I'm very proud of this. One of my books is called MMA Science, that I'm the only person in the world that's ever applied the science to MMA and like written about it and stuff like that. You don't got to mention it. I'm saying it to you, or feel free to, but it's great because it just shows that the science can be used anywhere because all results
يا
require behavior and there's a science of behavior.
يا هو بيقول ان الكتب بتاعته حاليا يعني مهمه جدا لو حد حابب يقرا في تحليل السلوك التطبيقي ويتعلم. هي سلسه جدا، وواضح ان اللغه بتاعته كمان يعني مش صعبه زي لما بنسمعها في الافلام، يعني ما شاء الله عليه. فهو بيعلمك بالظبط في الكتب دي ان تحليل السلوك التطبيقي يمكن ان يطبق في كل مكان. فهي كتب مهمه جدا، يعني هتبقى كويس جدا لو انت بحثت عنها وقراتها. يس دكتور.
Okay, awesome. All right, so now things are going to get simpler now as we go, right? I'll be able to move faster on this stuff because the leadership becomes like a little bit easier when I explain it,
يا
right? Now, first of all, I want to say that leadership, and I deliberately use bad grammar here, it's slang in the States, right? Leadership ain't about title instead of is not, right? It ain't about title. I have a book called Positional Authority Ain't Leadership. And a lot of people think leadership is about a title, but have you ever worked for a person, Ahmed, or anybody that's on here, that they might have the position, but they weren't really good leaders? Have you ever worked for somebody like that when you showed up at the work and and you felt sick to your stomach and you wish they kind of weren't around? Have you had that experience?
about what experience?
Like having somebody that you don't want to be around that was in a position that was in a leadership position?
More.
Yes, I've had a
Yeah.
lot of it, right? And so it's not about title. That's what I want to make it clear. There are plenty of people who have titles, but they're not real leaders. And there are plenty of people without titles that are really good leaders. So I'm going to explain what leadership is in a second, but go ahead and translate that.
اوكي. هو بيقول دلوقتي ان يعني ممكن اشخاص تكون معاك كويسين جدا، بس مجرد ما تحطوا في مناصب قياديه انت بتتضايق جدا منهم جدا يعني. فهو كان بيسالني انت تعرضت لحاجه زي كده؟ قلت له اه جدا. يعني ممكن اشخاص كنت تتعامل معاهم زميل وزميلتك في العمل، مجرد ما بقى هو الليدر عليك انت بدات تتضايق. فهو هيشرح يعني ممكن تحس بالاحساس ده ليه. يا دكتور.
Okay, great. So now we're going to break down leadership into what I call the four hats of leadership. And I call it the hats because I turn my hat around to show each one. You might consider it the four pillars of leadership, or from a behavior analytic point of view, it's the four response classes of leadership, right? So in the end, everybody, right, in a leadership position is responsible for linking behavior with value results, right? It always comes down to
يا
behavior results, right? It comes down to those two things. So I break this down into four hats, okay? So the first hat is the leading hat, okay? So I'm
the,
going to
the 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 first hat is what?
the leading hat.
Because I can't make zoom to the. I will try.
Leading, can you see it's called the leading hat, like leadership leading hat.
Leading hat.
Yes,
Okay.
and leading, right? Leading from a behavior analytic point of view has a value altering and behavior altering effect. Ahmed, this is your MOs, right? We
Yeah.
get people excited about, something, right? It is in lay person's terms, it's inspirational. We create a want for people to move towards some goals. So I'll let you go ahead and translate that real quick. That's the leading hat. That's not all we need, but that's the
يا
first hat.
بقول لك ان العمل الكويس او الجاد لازم يكون مرتبط بنتائج ذات قيمه. وعشان يحصل ده قال لك احنا عندنا اربع قبعات هيبدا يشرحهم. اول قبعه فيهم هي القياده، هو هيشرحهم بعد كده هترجمه. يس دكتور.
Okay, now what does that look like, right? So, well, it could be like being enthusiastic, creating a culture of trust and respect, right? That would we need to boil that down to behavior, right? Involving our stakeholders, finding out what's important to them, doing what we say we're going to do, right? All that develops trust and respect. Empowering choice and voice, right? Giving people choices, soliciting their feedback on things, fostering a behavioral mindset, right? Getting people to understand what behavior is, how to get the best out of other people, recognizing their own behavior and the impact of it, right? And in the end, connecting their behavior to the real world outcomes, right? So these are like some keys to effective leading.
before we go to this, please, could you tell me what the difference between coaching and the trainer? I think the
I'm going to get to
other
that in a second. I'm going to unpack each hat. So I will. Yep.
okay.
Yeah, we're going to move to those. I'm going to go down to each hat here. I'm going to unpack each one of those, and I will clearly differentiate the difference between the training,
You will
coaching, and
explain that
management.
now?
No, because that's what my next slides go through. I'm going to go through each hat and explain the difference of
Not
them.
now, yeah, not in this workshop.
Yes, in the workshop. I'm going to go through it in this workshop. Yes.
No, okay.
Yes.
So next.
Okay. So now we go to the training hat, right? So the leading is about an MO. It's about inspiration. The training hat functions for skill acquisition, right? Knowledge and skill acquisition. So you create a want for people. I want to do this thing, and now I got to make sure I equip them with the knowledge and skills to be successful, right? So very simple, right? That's the training hat. And in order to give people good training, we want to make sure that we use basic behavior skills training, instruction, modeling, rehearsal, and feedback. But we also want to make sure that we engage people in like scenarios whenever possible. Like in the fight game, I can train people on the skills. The simulation of the scenarios is like the sparring, you know what I mean? So where people are able to practice this stuff in like mock examples, you know, so they're getting kind of feedback that's close to the real world, but it's not the real world. So we got to make sure that we use behavior skills training, instruction, modeling, rehearsal, and feedback. And then we start to connect it to the real world through some sort of simulations or scenario-based stuff.
Who will do that? The trainer or the leadership?
Well, the classroom leader does it for the students, right? With expectations, right? When they're teaching expectations, the educator support does it for the teachers when they're training them in that stuff, right? Does that make sense? Yeah. So you're
بيقول لك
training that stuff up. Yeah.
يا اوكي بقول لك من الحاجات يعني اللي هتخلي العمل ناجح او الاطفال سلوكهم يتغير حاجه اسمها رول بلاي او لعب الادوار. انت تيجي مكاني وانا اجي مكانك ونبدل المواقف، نشوف انت هتحس بايه وانا هحس بايه، بحيث انا افهمك في الموقف ده وانت كمان تفهمني في الموقف ده. يعني نعمل لعب قائم على ادوار وسيناريوهات. ما اقولش للطفل السرقه مثلا حرام، لا اجيبه كده واعلمه هو لو اتسرق منه حاجه ايه اللي هيحصل، ايه احساسه، وابدا اخليه يدخل في الجزئيه دي. يس دكتور.
Okay. Now, a lot of people have it confused. Now, I'm very proud of this stuff because the coaching stuff, nobody's ever defined this stuff functionally. Everybody doesn't understand the difference of that, right?
Yeah.
So we're training functions for skill acquisition. Coaching functions to support the generalization of learned skills in natural environment, right? Training is an antecedent strategy. Training will get behavior going, right? But if you see here, that's performance. That's the actual generalization of skills, right? Without coaching, people will just behave for a little bit and then it will go away. Coaching connects their behavior to the impact in the environment, right? It's connecting them with results, the consequences that are going to maintain their behavior, right? So coaching is about the generalization of learned skills into the natural environment. That's the function of coaching. Training is about skill acquisition. Coaching is about generalization.
Could you repeat
skills.
last thing again? Coaching is what?
It supports the generalization or transference. How about that? Transference of skills. Training, I give the fighter.
Him trying
Yes.
to get his skills to others.
Now, training is about getting skills. Coaching is about them using the skills in the real world, right? It shifts from telling people what to do to ask them, what are you doing? And what's happening as a result of what you're doing. It's helping them to connect their behavior with the results that they're having.
I'm confusing in coaching and training. I will try to explain what I understand. Training is saying or get the experience to others. But coaching is show to them how to do that.
That's part of training too. Coaching, once they have the skills to do it, coaching now, they go back in the thing. And let's say I coached you, right, in classroom management. Now I show up, right, and I say, tell me what's going well for you. What are you doing? What is happening as a result of what you're doing? I am helping you to better see your behavior and the impact of your behavior on the environment. Because ultimately, I want the good consequences for your behavior to take over. Because if you see by doing this thing, the kids are learning better, they're behaving better, that naturally occurring outcome, that result, right, that reinforcer is going to take over for your behavior. My job is to help you behave well enough and long enough, once you have the skills, that you produce these outcomes. So I shift from telling to asking.
but I can't make the difference between coaching and the training.
Training, I give you the skills. Okay. So if
Give me
it's
example.
fighting,
Training is what? Coaching is what?
training is giving you the skills.
It's give me the skill.
Coaching is helping you perform the skills in the natural environment.
يعني is make the skills out.
In the actual real world, right? So the teacher goes to a training, right? Gets the skills. Now she has to perform those skills in the classroom. And
The
she has to
training,
perform
he
them.
will be the coaching someday.
Yes, you have to have coaching to connect the training because people will go back and they'll fall back into their old habits without coaching.
اوكي. هو بيقول ان يعني التريننج بيعطيك انت المهارات العامه، اما الكوتشنج بيخليك تعمم المهارات دي في البيئه اللي حواليك. يس دكتور.
Yes, somebody commented down there, they got it. Yes. Aguida there, I'm probably screwing up their name, but yes, it's about helping people to behave well enough and long enough that they see that they're producing the outcomes once they have the skills. And I can put on the hat. So if I told you right now, Ahmed, here's what I want you to do, and I show you how to do it, and I let you practice it, and now you can do it. Okay.
Yeah.
Just because you can do it here doesn't mean you're going to do it in your workplace. Now I come to the workplace, right?
Now you are a trainer. If you come to my work and teach me how to do it, it's coaching.
That's right. That's probably the easiest way to do it. But I can do it in the workplace as well. I can say, hold on, let's say you're teaching, I can pull you aside and I can instruct you on how to do something, right? And that could take 1 minute to do it. And then I shift.
We can say this is different between you read something and do something by your own.
There you go.
That's very good. اوكي.
Yes.
ولكن الفرق بين التريننج والكوتشنج ان هو حاليا بيعمل تريننج، بيدربنا ازاي نعمل ده، بس ده مش معناه ان احنا نقدر نعمل ده مثلا في البيئه العاديه الا تحت اشراف. يعني ده مفهومه، يعني ان التريننج هو الجزء النظري، اما الكوتشنج هو الجزء العملي. يس دكتور.
Yeah, that makes sense now?
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
all
you.
right, great. Yes, you're welcome. Now there's the managing hat, right? A lot of people think like leadership is better than management. You need all the hats, right? So where training hat is about skill acquisition. Coaching hat is about supporting the generalization of those skills in the natural environment, getting people to behave well enough and long enough that they see that's producing good outcomes for themselves, right? This is good. And those outcomes will take over. Managing is about maintenance of those behaviors, right? So managing is about using your system. Like, remember when I talked about driving? The system has contingencies in place, right? These if-thens. If you drive according to the rules of the road, you'll very likely get to your destination, right? Which is a positive reinforcer, right? For you, right?
Yeah.
And you'll avoid getting in tickets and all that stuff. If you do the wrong thing, well, you could get into an accident. You could get a ticket, right? So effective managing leverages the contingencies of the system. And they do it at a 4-to-1 rate, right? We always want to recognize good behavior 4 times as much as we correct it. But we definitely need the correct behavior. Does that make sense? So managing is about maintenance of those skills. If somebody just starts doing something and we don't get in touch with reinforcement well enough or long enough, that behavior should go away. Managing prevents behavior drift.
يعني to get it, that's mean the third one or the third hat is making the rules.
No, not the third hat. This is the managing hat. This is the fourth hat. So you have the leading hat, the training hat, the coaching hat. Now the fourth hat is
training hat and coaching hat. We know it. Third one is.
That's the fourth hat. The leading hat is the first hat.
Okay. First one is meaning he's making the rules.
The leading hat, yes. So leading hat, yes, is involving your stakeholders in developing the system. We always want stakeholders involved in, right? That's part of the motivating operation.
Okay. First one again, please. What he's doing?
Leading hat. It's a motivating operation. It has a value and behavior altering effect, right? So part of a leading is involving your stakeholders, right? And that's including involving them in developing the system or giving them say in it when you can. If it's the classroom and you have a classroom management plan, the teacher's going to have their behavioral expectations, right? But you can ask the students, hey, what are your preferences? What do you like? All right. Also, tell me,
اه
what do you think should happen if you do the wrong thing? And the teacher gives limited choice, but they're all involved in it. They have some sort of say, and that increases the likelihood because they feel like they have say, they have voice, and they have choice, right?
So we can say leading is say what is vowels to the student, then training is training them, then coaching come to make generalization, then last one is making the rules.
It was not making them, it's getting them to follow the rules. It's maintenance of behavior. It's ensuring that they follow the rules. Coaching
Uh,
gets them to see like, oh, if I do this thing, I produce these valued outcomes. Okay, they can see that happens. Now it's maintaining it to make sure that they continue along that path.
and he observe you and say if you do that you will take reinforcement. If you didn't do you will.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
That's it.
هو بيقول لك ان عشان تعمل اداره كويسه لازم تربط العمل بالنتائج. يعني ايه تربط العمل بالنتائج؟ عندك 4 قبعات لازم يمشوا مع بعض. رقم واحد هيكون عندك الشخص اللي هو الليدنج، ده اللي هيجمع ايه النقاط اللي الاشخاص اللي تحتك محتاجينها، او الاشخاص في العمل محتاجينها، او التلاميذ محتاجينها. بعدها هيحصل لهم تدريب على الحاجات دي. يعني انا محتاج اخد كورس في كذا وكذا وكذا وكذا، الليدنج جمع ده ميك فاولز دي او قيمه ذو قيمه عندي. بعد كده هيدربوني عليها بشكل نظري، ثم هتدرب عليها بشكل عملي. يجي الاخير، الاخر واحد اللي هيبدا يشوف اذا انا طبقت ده فهاخد معزز، او هيقول لي انا طبقت ده ولا ما طبقتوش، وبناء عليه هاخد التعزيز او لا. يس دكتور.
Okay, so now this is why I say that these are whether you're directly doing this stuff with somebody, the 4 hats, or
Yeah.
you're at the highest level, you're making sure that the systems does this. These are the 4 pillars, the 4 hats of leadership. And so anybody can engage in these behaviors. You don't have to be in a leadership position to inspire somebody, right? That's the leading hat. You don't have to be in a leadership position to train somebody or teach them how to do something. You don't have to be in a position to coach them, to ask them what they're doing and help them see the impact of their behavior, right? And you
That-
also don't have to be in a leadership position to help maintain their behavior, right? Let's say I'm checking in on with you and say, hey, what's going on, right? And you shouldn't do that. Remember, you said you're going to do this, that, and the other. That's maintenance of the behavior. So you don't have to be in a formal position, right? But good leaders know when to switch to which hat, right? And so this is my final thing is that when somebody's not performing to a standard, whether it's a student or a teacher or any performer, there's only 2 reasons. It's a can't do or it's a don't do. It's a skill deficit or it's a motivational deficit, right? If it's a skill deficit, well, we know you have to put on the training hat. We got to make sure that people have the knowledge and skills to be successful. If it's a motivational deficit, then we might have to switch to like either the leading hat, right? Because they just don't see the why behind it, or the coaching hat where, hey, they haven't behaved well enough and long enough that they actually see the naturally occurring consequences. So we're helping them see the impact of their behavior, or maybe it's just the maintenance of the behavior, maybe it's just using the contingency. But we need to know which is which, whether it's a student, it's a can't do or a don't do, or it's an employee at any level. Instead of yelling at them or telling them they need to do A, B, and C, yelling never works, blaming never works. We need to get to the function of their behavior. This is like a functional behavior assessment. But in this case, it's performance diagnostics. Why? And this allows us to know how to intervene. And I have this in all my books, the performance diagnostic checklist, because it's simple. It just makes sense.
Yeah. Wow. I know the time is finished, so I need to translate that. Then I will ask you the last question. I know you give us more of your time.
Yeah, no problem. I'm going to put this up here so people can contact me, connect with me.
Leave it till I translate it, then I will ask you a question. Thanks so much.
Okay, yeah.
هو بيقول ان انت sorry, I have question before I translate. That's mean I can be leader whatever my position.
Say it again.
I can be leader whatever what I am position. Okay.
Yeah, you probably work with somebody who has good influence, right? The measure of the leader can be found in the behavior of the followers, right? Wherever, how we're impacting other people.
بقول لك غالبا انت هتكون واحد من 4، وانت مش مهم تكون شخص يعني الاسم بتاعه قيادي عشان تبقى قيادي. ممكن تكون قيادي باحد القبعات دول. يعني انت شخص بيجمع الفاولز هو جابها اهو. يس. فانت ممكن تكون انت شخص بيجمع القيمه من الاشخاص اللي حواليك، فانت ممكن تكون ليدر في الجزئيه دي. وتوجههم. ده ممكن يكون ليه قيمه عاليه، ده قيمه متوسطه او الى اخره. ممكن تكون كمان لو انت المدرب زي هو موجود حاليا مثلا ويوجهنا، انت حاليا شخص قائد. لو انت بقى في ارض الواقع تبدا تعمم المهاره دي على الاشخاص وتدربهم جوه الجلسه، فانت برضه شخص قيادي، او انت المدير فانت شخص قيادي. فايا كان البوزيشن بتاعك حاول تكون شخص قيادي وما تبقاش يعني ما تبقاش ما تبصش للمسميات قد ما تبص للمكان اللي انت فيها يعني. وقال لك ان العجز الوظيفي او ان الانسان غالبا بيفشل او بيحصل له مشاكل بسبب حاجتين: ان هو بيقول انا مش هقدر اعمل ده، او حد بيقول له ما تعملش ده. فركز عليه. Yes, doctor. If you finish, I have the last question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I waited this يعني workshop I think from long time to ask this question. This is my personal question. Okay, the question is, do you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Yeah. Can I work with token economy with man? I give you example to understand what I need to say exactly. Like the target behavior is meant. So whatever the student or the client is ask something, I give to him. Like I need pen, I give him pen. I need chocolate, I give him chocolate. I need like mobile, I give him
Man, yeah.
mobile. With every man, I give him token.
But you want
Like
to fade that.
yeah, I need pen, I give him the pen, and I give him token.
Yes.
I need the mobile. I give him mobile, then token. I need TV. I give him TV
Yes,
with
right.
token. After
Yes.
that, I give him reinforcement.
Yes.
This
But
is
you got to
any
fade that
problem?
eventually.
Yeah, this is any problem with that?
No,
Because
as long as you fade though, eventually you're first teaching a man. Now, I don't focus on the clinical end of stuff. Just so you know, my specialty is organizational behavior management, not the
yeah,
clinical side. This is
yeah,
not my wheelhouse. But I do know that manding is very important. So we need to reinforce every time, and then we begin to fade, right?
yeah,
So we train people. That's part of the manding is giving reinforcing. You're teaching them to do this, right? Uh, then the managing part becomes maintenance of that stuff. That means you got to make sure that you intermittently do it and you fade that because you don't want that behavior to go away. You
yeah,
want to maintain that behavior until it's a habit.
yeah.
So that would be part of it, making sure that they can actually put the request in, then coaching them to like see, hey, if you do this, you get this. Oh, that's great. And then
So
managing
no
that's the
problem to
maintenance.
do man with token economy.
Well, no, only if the token has value. If the token doesn't have value, then no. You might need to pair that token with a primary reinforcer at first.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, دكتور. هو الدكتور بيقول لو انتوا تقدروا تعملوا سكرين، يعني سكرين للشاشه اللي موجوده دي حاليا، هتقدروا توصلوا لكل معلوماته. يعني هو مين، السي في بتاعه، ازاي تتواصلوا معاه، الكتب اللي موجوده بتاعته على امازون، اي حاجه. هو جدوله مشغول جدا، بس هو بيرد على الناس بصراحه، شخصيه محترمه جدا. يعني نشكره شكرا جزيلا. Yes, doctor, I'm finished. Uh,
Okay.
if you have something to add, we will be so happy.
No, I put my QR code up there. That's
I
a
speak
link
with
to my
them about that to
materials.
screenshot. If they need anything, they will reach to this barcode and they will
Yeah.
reach to how they can communicate with you and all your
Yeah.
books. Yes.
All my stuff is in there. Also so all my books are there, my podcasts are there, free news articles. Also, if you guys
Wow.
have now this is on behalf of PCMA, Professional Crisis Management Association. We train people all over the world to become certified instructors. So if you guys all have
Wow.
a crisis management system like that you're using, you can become an instructor of professional crisis management and train people in your area, certified instructors. So if you go down, there are links to that material, and it's all grounded in applied behavior analysis.
Oh, that's very good. Also, I will I will put your Facebook account after I finish this bus in my page so he can reach to you.
Yeah, sure. I think I'm almost
Also,
booked up in terms of connections, but people can follow me. My social media links are in there as well. My Instagram, my
اوكي،
LinkedIn, my
اعملوا
Facebook.
سكرين، اعملوا
Yeah,
سكرين للشاشه دي، فيها
it's
كل
in
السوشيال
here.
ميديا
Yeah.
اكونت بتاعته، كل البوكس بتاعته او الكتب بتاعته. كمان في يعني هو عنده مدربين جميع انحاء العالم تقدروا تدربوا معاهم. هو شخص بصراحه متواضع جدا، وانا مبسوط جدا ان هو كان معانا النهارده. Thank you so
Can
much
can you
دكتور
ask
أرون.
them can you ask them and maybe translate how do I do for them today? Because I say my objective was to simplify things, inspire, and get them to
Can I
reflect. So
ask
did I
them
meet
what? Sorry, can I ask them what?
can you ask them if I met my objective today? Because I said I wanted to inspire, to simplify things, inspire them, to get them to reflect on their own behavior. Was I able to do that for them today?
Sorry, I didn't get you. Could you repeat it again, please?
That's okay. Just ask them, how did I do for them today? That'll be good enough.
اوكي سوري.
That's
دلوقتي
okay.
ممكن لو سمحتوا تحطوا في التعليقات تقييمكم للورشه. So they will put the comment now. Like
Yes. Oh yeah. Okay, I see
من
it going through.
10 انتوا حسيتوا ان الورشه عامله ازاي؟ يا ريت تكتبوا بالعربي او يعني لو كتبتوا بالانجليزي كويس، لو كتبتوا بالعربي تعملوا يعني بالارقام.
Yeah. Thank you guys. I mean, obviously it feels good to do it, but I want to practice what I preach. And I believe that we need to check in with our stakeholders to find out how we're doing for them. So I'm trying to model that as well. And of course, it's very reinforcing to see all that stuff come through. So I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. If you see that the comment now is coming,
I see them. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
they
It's
are very
wonderful.
happy about this workshop. Thank you so much again for your time, and inshallah we'll meet again someday.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so
Bye
much.
bye.
Okay.
السلام
Bye-bye.
عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Thank
ثانك
you.
يو
Bye.
دكتور، ثانك يو دكتور احمد.
Thank
شكرا
you, brother.
دكتور احمد على المحاضره الرائعه. ثانك يو دكتور. On behalf of the team of AFAC Maria platform, I thank you very much. Thank you دكتور
Thank
احمد. شكرا.
you. عفوا.
شكرا
السلام
للحضور
عليكم.
الكريم، وألف شكر لك دكتور أحمد مرة تانية على المحاضرة الرائعة، وشكرا للناس اللي شرفتنا في المحاضرة اليوم، وسعداء بتواجدكم معنا في منصة آفاق ماريا للتدريب. على وعد إن شاء الله بالمزيد من المحاضرات هتقدم خلال الفترة القادمة بإذن الله تعالى. شكرا مرة تانية.
سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.